You ever hear about schools in the middle of nowhere? The kind no one ever transfers into, only out of. I thought I was taking a teaching job in a forgotten Arizona town, but what I got was a front row seat to something far older, far hungrier than any failing school district. They gave me a classroom and 3 unwritten rules. Don't read the Nameless test. Avoid the janitor when he's stuck. And if you ever see yourself in the hallway, look away. This is not a lesson plan. This is a warning. If you've got the nerves, stay until the very end. There's a twist you won't see coming. And if you've ever felt something watching you at school, drop a comment. Subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules before the next bell rings. This is, I got a job at a haunted strange school in Arizona. We have 3 strange rules to survive. Welcome to class. The Arizona sun didn't just bake Black Mesa High. It bleached the life out of it, leaving a skeleton of faded stucco and heat-warped asphalt shimmering under a sky too vast and painfully blue, pulling into the cracked, nearly empty parking lot. My decade-old sedan felt like an intrusion, the only spot of color in a landscape washed in shades of dust and resignation. This wasn't the picturesque desert postcard. This was the harsh, indifferent reality. My fresh start felt instantly gritty, coated in the fine red dust that seemed to hang permanently in the shimmering air. So much for leaving the ghost behind. This place felt saturated with them already. The school itself sprawled low against the barren ground. A single-story maze of flat roofs and sun-faded brick that looked less like an institution of learning and more like a forgotten outpost on the edge of nowhere. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant whine of the wind sweeping across the empty desert and the relentless, oppressive weight of the heat. Inside, the air conditioning struggled valiantly, but failed, leaving the corridors smelling of stale, cooled air, old linoleum, dust, and the faint, sharp tang of industrial cleaner. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with an irritating inconsistency, casting a pale, flickering illumination on water-stained ceiling tiles and lockers, dented with years of neglect. Principal Thompson's office was an oasis of frantic order amidst the general decay. Feelers overflowed from cabinets. Budget spreadsheets covered half her desk, and she spoke with the rapid-fire weariness of someone perpetually fighting a losing battle against dwindling resources and bureaucratic demands. She gave me the official welcome, standardized test goals, attendance policies, the importance of maintaining a positive learning environment despite challenges. Her smile was tight, professional, but her eyes held a deep-seated exhaustion. Mr. Henderson will show you to your classroom, she concluded, already turning back to her computer screen. He's familiar with how things operate here, knows the ropes. The implication was clear. Henderson held the real keys to navigating this place. Henderson was waiting outside, leaning against the corridor wall, looking like he'd been part of the original fixtures. Late 50s, maybe older, history teacher, clad in the unofficial uniform of desert educators, worn slacks, and a short-sleeved shirt that had seen better decades. His cynicism was a tangible aura. "Clara Bellwether? Clara Bellwether?" he asked, not offering a hand. "Right. Let's get this over with." He led me down echoing hallways, past empty bulletin boards in classrooms where outdated posters clung to the walls. He didn't offer pleasantries, just pointed out the library, the faculty lounge, a depressing room with a stained coffee maker, the general layout. As we approached my assigned classroom, he stopped, turning to face me, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes holding that same deep weariness I'd seen in Thompson's. "Look," he said, his voice low, pitched so only I could hear over the distant hum of the AC. "Thompson gave you the official spiel. Now for the Black Mesa welcome package. This isn't in the handbook. This isn't something you discuss at staff meetings. And you definitely don't bring it up with her unless you want a fast track to a psych evil or a non-renewal." He held my gaze. 3 things. Just tips for getting through the year here without attracting the wrong kind of attention. First, he said quietly, you find a test paper on your desk. Looks official, maybe even your subject, but no name on it. Don't touch it. Don't grade it. Don't read it. Don't even acknowledge it if you can help it. Slide it off into the trash with a ruler if you have to. Just get rid of it, unseen if possible. My brow furrowed, but he pressed on. Second, Will, the janitor. Second, Will, the janitor. I nodded, remembering the silent, older man I'd seen pushing a mop listlessly down a far corridor earlier. Sometimes he gets stuck, mopping the same spot. For hours, looks like nothing, just worn floor. If you see him doing that, you find another route. Avoid that specific area completely until he moves on. Don't interrupt him. Don't ask why. Third, Henderson sighed, rubbing his temples briefly. This place plays tricks on your eyes, especially late in the day. Always empty. You think you see movement down a long corridor. If, just for a second, you think you see yourself. He hesitated, looking deeply uncomfortable. Another version of you. Same clothes, everything. You duck back. You hide. You make damn sure it doesn't see you looking at it. Wait for it to pass. It will pass. If it doesn't know you saw it. He stared at me, letting the sheer insanity of his words sink in. These aren't jokes, Bellwether. They're insulation. Follow them. Keep your head down. Do your job. Don't ask questions Thompson doesn't want to answer. Maybe you'll make it through the year. He gave a curt nod towards my classroom door. Keys are inside. Good luck. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the empty hall, leaving me standing there reeling, the desert heat pressing in. Pushing open my classroom door, the smell of dust and chalk filled my nostrils. Standard battered desks, an old whiteboard, windows looking out onto the bleached landscape. I dropped my bag onto the teacher's desk, a heavy wooden thing scarred with decades of use. Opening the top drawer to look for basic supplies, my fingers brushed against something papery tucked into the back corner. I pulled it out, a faded black and white photograph of a smiling class, maybe from the late 70s or early 80s, posed stiffly in front of the school sign. Except one face, a girl in the second row, wasn't smiling. It had been violently, obsessively scratched out, leaving only a jagged, angry void where her features should have been. A cold dread, unrelated to the desert heat, began to prickle beneath my skin. Welcome to Black Mesa High. Welcome to Black Mesa High. The defaced photograph became a grim fixture in my desk drawer, a tangible reminder that the unease I felt wasn't just the standard first-year teacher jitters. I tried to focus on the job, lesson plans, grading papers, navigating the cautious curiosity of students like Mateo, whose quiet intensity and dark, intricate drawings felt like their own kind of silent scream in this place. But the school itself seemed to resist normalcy. Lights hummed with an irregular cadence. Strange temperature fluctuations occurred without warning, and the silence in the long, empty hallways often felt watchful. Then came the test. I'd stayed late one sweltering afternoon, trying to catch up on grading. The only sounds the drone of the struggling AC unit and the frantic buzz of cicadas outside the dusty window. My desk was clear except for my laptop and grading pile. When I returned from a quick trip to the depressingly empty faculty lounge, it was there, sitting dead center on the worn wood surface. A single sheet of paper, standardized test format, multiple choice questions pertaining vaguely to freshman English concepts. Professional looking, except for one glaring omission. The space with the student's name at the top was utterly, unnervingly blank. Rule 1. Test appears on your desk with no name. Don't touch it. My blood ran cold. It looked so mundane, so easily explained as a mistake. A paper dropped by a student or misplaced by another teacher. My fingers twitched with the urge to pick it up, to flip it over, to find some identifying mark. just a piece of paper. Yet Henderson's weary, serious tone echoed in my mind. "Don't touch it." My heart hammered against my ribs. Was this a prank? A test from Henderson or Thompson? Or was it Rule 1 manifesting? Taking a deep breath, I carefully slid my closed laptop across the desk, nudging the Nameless test paper off the edge and directly into the recycling bin beside my desk. It landed with a soft, papery sound. I didn't look at it again, quickly packing my bag, the mundane act feeling charged with irrational fear. The next morning, I sought out Henderson in the faculty lounge before classes started. Keeping my voice low, I casually mentioned finding a misplaced blank test paper. His eyes, normally half closed with cynicism, sharpened instantly. "Where is it now?" he asked quietly. "Recycling bin," I said. He gave a slow nod, a flicker of something. Relief? Approval in his gaze. "Good," he murmured. "And Bellwether. Don't mention misplaced tests or anything similar to Principal Thompson. She has specific views on staff reporting unusual occurrences. Calls it undue stress affecting school performance metrics. Just handle things quietly." The warning was clear. The administration was another layer of danger here. Later that day, I saw Mr. Davies, the perpetually stressed-out math teacher, snatch a similar-looking paper off his desk with an annoyed sigh, presumably to find its owner. Over the next few days, Davies complained loudly about splitting headaches, kept misplacing his keys, and made a significant error in calculating semester grades that required Thompson's direct intervention. When I overheard Thompson discussing it, she attributed it curtly to Davies being overworked and needing to manage his stress levels more effectively. No mention of strange papers, just bureaucratic dismissal. The following Monday morning, my blood turned to ice. Sitting squarely in the center of my otherwise clear desk was the test paper. Same format, same questions, same blank namespace. The recycling bin had been emptied Friday evening. It was back. This time, I didn't hesitate. Using a long ruler, I carefully slid the paper off the desk, not into the bin, but directly into the jaws of the heavy-duty shredder tucked in the corner of the classroom. The machine whirred, devouring the Nameless page with mechanical finality. But as I turned away, I couldn't shake the distinct, prickling sensation that I was being watched, not by anything supernatural, but by the cold, calculating gaze of the school administration itself. Life at Black Mesa High settled into a tense rhythm, punctuated by the low hum of institutional strangeness. I focused on teaching, trying to create a small pocket of normalcy for students like Mateo, whose drawings grew darker, filled with distorted figures and swirling shadows that seemed to echo the unsettling atmosphere of the school itself. He rarely spoke, but sometimes his dark eyes would meet mine with a flicker of shared, uneasy understanding. Then I started noticing Will, the janitor. He was a fixture, always somewhere in the periphery, moving with a slow, deliberate silence, his face weathered and unreadable. But his mopping, it became specific. For 3 days straight, during third period, when the hallways were mostly empty, he was in the same spot, a 10-foot stretch of worn linoleum, near the double doors leading to the library, not cleaning up a spill, just mopping, slow, overlapping strokes back and forth. The steady wet whisper of the mop head the only sound in the corridor. The floor wasn't dirty. By the third day, the air around that spot felt different, colder, heavier, with a faint, unpleasant smell like stagnant water or ammonia rising from the repeatedly dampened tiles. Rule 2. Janitor mops the same spot for hours. Avoid that area. The library was essential for my lesson planning. But that stretch of hallway was the only direct route from my classroom wing. Avoiding it meant a long, circuitous detour through the echoing gymnasium lobby and back around through the science wing, adding precious minutes to my already tight schedule. On the second day of Will's ritualistic mopping, Henderson saw me taking the long way around. He didn't say anything, just gave that almost imperceptible nod again. A silent acknowledgement that I was learning the real rules. The wrongness of the spot was palpable. Walking past the entrance to that corridor, even 50 feet away, I felt a wave of dizziness, a subtle pressure in my ears like changing altitude. Once I saw Mateo heading towards the library, book bag slung over his shoulder, oblivious. He was about to step onto the eternally damp patch of linoleum, when Will, without looking up from his mopping, simply stopped, blocking the boy's path with the mop handle. Mateo froze, looked from Will's impassive face to the floor, then slowly backed away, taking the long detour himself. Will resumed his steady rhythmic strokes, no words exchanged, but the warning was absolute. I decided to test the administrative waters. During a brief meeting with Principal Thompson about book requisitions, I casually mentioned a persistently damp spot near the library, causing a potential slip hazard, suggesting maintenance look into a possible leak. Thompson's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ah, yes. Deputy Bellwether," she said smoothly, shuffling papers. "Our aging infrastructure does present challenges. Will is very diligent, perhaps overly so, in his cleaning routines. Just remind students to be cautious. We have to make do with the resources we have, you understand. Focus on classroom matters. Dismissal. Gaslighting." The message was clear. Ignore it. That evening, driven by suspicion, I accessed the school's online maintenance request archives using my staff login. After digging through years of poorly organized files, I found it. Multiple work orders, dating back over a decade, for tile replacement in that exact section of hallway near the library. Reasons cited were vague: water damage, wear and tear, surface degradation, all signed off year after year by Principal Thompson. They weren't just ignoring the spot. They were actively, repeatedly covering up its effects. The discovery in the maintenance logs tightened the knot of dread in my stomach. Thompson wasn't just overworked. She was actively complicit in hiding whatever festered within Black Mesa High. Henderson wasn't just cynical. He was a terrified survivor navigating a system designed to silence inconvenient truths. And I was trapped between the inexplicable phenomena and the administration determined to pretend they didn't exist. My sleep became even more fragmented, filled with images of nameless tests and endlessly mopped floors. The third rule manifested on a Thursday afternoon. School had just let out. The cacophony of dismissal bells and shouting students slowly fading, leaving the hallways echoing and strangely empty under the buzzing fluorescent lights. I was walking back to my classroom after dropping off papers, the silence settling heavily. Ahead, the main corridor stretched long and dim. An intersecting hallway branched off to the left, leading towards the seldom-used auditorium wing. As I approached the intersection, movement flickered at the periphery of my vision, far down the dimmer side corridor. I glanced over instinctively. A figure, just a glimpse. Someone turning the far corner at the end of that hallway, disappearing from view. But that glimpse froze me mid-step, ice flooding my veins. The figure's height, the way they moved. The dark blue cardigan I myself was wearing. It was me, an exact replica. Seen for only a fraction of a second, but undeniably terrifyingly me. Rule 3. See a second version of yourself. Don't let it see you. Panic clamped down, cold and absolute. I didn't think. I reacted. I threw myself back, stumbling against the lockers lining the main hall. Heart hammering against my ribs so hard it hurt. I pressed myself flat against the cool metal, hidden from the intersection, straining my ears. Did it see me? Was it coming back down the corridor? The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, broken only by the frantic pulse pounding in my ears and the distant hum of the school's aging ventilation. It felt like an eternity, hiding there, barely breathing. Rational thought warred with primal terror. A trick of the light? Someone who just looked similar from a distance? But the cardigan? No, it was real. Henderson's warning wasn't a metaphor. Finally, gathering every shred of courage, I forced myself to peek cautiously around the corner. The long, dim corridor leading to the auditorium was completely empty. Sunlight streamed through a dusty window at the far end, illuminating nothing but empty air and worn linoleum. No sign of anyone, no echo of footsteps. Shaking, I forced myself to walk towards the intersection, then turned down the side corridor, scanning every shadow, every doorway. Nothing. It was just an empty, silent hallway, but as I reached the far corner where the figure had vanished, my foot nudged something small on the floor. I bent down, fingers trembling. It was a small silver earring, the distinctive one I knew I had put in that morning, the mate to the one still securely in my right earlobe. It must have fallen off when I stumbled back against the lockers, except I hadn't been near this end of the corridor when I saw the figure. It had been dropped here, where my double had turned the corner. Proof. Real, tangible, terrifying proof that it had been here. Impossibly close. Later, when I obliquely mentioned feeling strangely disoriented in the hallways after school to Henderson, hoping for some clue, his reaction was immediate and harsh. His voice, a low hiss. "Bellwether, stop it," he warned, glancing nervously towards the administration offices. "You didn't see anything, understand? You report seeing things, especially things like that. Thompson won't just dismiss it as stress. She'll bury you. Some doors here are meant to stay closed, for your own good." His fear wasn't just of the phenomena anymore. It was clearly, chillingly, of the principal herself. The dropped earring felt heavy in my pocket, a constant cold reminder of the hallway encounter. The school seemed to hold its breath around me. Henderson avoided me pointedly, his usual cynicism replaced by a haunted look. Matteo grew increasingly withdrawn, his drawings becoming frantic, filled with distorted reflections and empty pages marked only with a single, jagged number. 2. He tried to tell me once, voice trembling, about seeing someone else who looked just like him lurking near the edges of the playground during lunch, but flinched away when another student approached, retreating back into his shell of silence. Then, the convergence accelerated. One morning, nearly half a dozen identical, nameless test papers appeared scattered across desks in my empty classroom before school started. The low, wet whisper of Will's mop echoed persistently from down the hall near the library, even though it wasn't his usual time. And Matteo didn't show up for first period, or second. A cold dread sharper than any fear I'd felt before seized me. Standard procedure was to report the absence, wait. But knowing what I knew, seeing Matteo's escalating distress, I couldn't wait. I reported Matteo missing to the office via email, creating a digital trail, then started searching, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. His locker was empty, except for a single folded piece of paper. Not a note, but a drawing. It depicted two figures, nearly identical, standing on opposite sides of a dark, swirling vortex on the floor. One figure reached towards the vortex. The other seemed to be fading, erasing itself. Below it, scratched hard into the paper, was the number 1. My blood ran cold. The countdown from his earlier drawing. The Mops spot. My search led me towards the library wing. As I neared the perpetually damp section of hallway Will favored, the air grew noticeably colder. The smell of ammonia and something else, something stagnant and wrong, was stronger here. Will wasn't present, but the floor tiles in that specific 10-foot stretch looked distorted. The pattern seemed to shimmer, almost liquefy, like looking through thick, unstable glass. A low humming sound, barely audible, seemed to emanate from the floor itself. Rule 2, avoid this area. But Matteo, just as I hesitated, Henderson intercepted me, appearing suddenly from a side corridor. his face pale and strained. "Clara, don't," he pleaded, his voice low, urgent. I tried to warn Thompson about Mateo seeing things. She shut me down, said he was exhibiting stress behaviors and needed counseling. Not this. "She knows you're looking for him. Go back to your classroom, please." "Where is he, Henderson?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Did she?" Before he could answer, Principal Thompson's voice crackled over my radio, sharp and clipped. "Bellwether, report to my office immediately." Immediately. It wasn't a request. My gut screamed trap, but disobeying a direct order now would only solidify any narrative she was building against me. Henderson gave me a look filled with despair and warning before retreating down the hallway. Squaring my shoulders, I headed towards the administration wing, the humming from the warped floor seeming to follow me. Thompson's office felt colder than usual. She sat behind her cluttered desk, radiating a forced calm that felt brittle, dangerous. "Deputy Bellwether," she began, not inviting me to sit. "I understand young Mateo Diaz is absent today, and that you've been expressing concerns about his stability and other building maintenance issues." Mateo confided he was seeing things. Principal Thompson, he was terrified, and that spot near the library is scheduled for tile replacement over the summer break due to a minor subfloor leak. Thompson cut me off smoothly, her eyes like chips of obsidian. "And Mateo comes from a difficult home situation. Stress manifests in many ways. As for your other concerns, misplaced papers, flickering lights, this is an old, underfunded school. Bellwether, we deal with reality here, not flights of fancy. The rules," Henderson told me. I started, but she raised a hand, silencing me. "Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice dropping, turning icy, "has learned through long tenure certain coping mechanisms, quirks you might say, necessary perhaps for longevity here, but not official policy. And frankly, your recent focus on these quirks instead of your duties is becoming a liability." "Liability?" "Mateo is missing. That spot, the test papers, the girl I saw in the hall." "Enough." Thompson stood up abruptly, her facade cracking, revealing cold fury beneath. "There was no girl. The tests are administrative errors. The floor is a plumbing issue, and Mateo likely walked off campus seeking attention." She leaned across the desk. "This school survives on a knife's edge. Budget cuts, low enrollment, state oversight breathing down our necks. One hint of scandal, one whiff of instability or unsafe conditions, real or imagined, and they shut us down. Hundreds of students displaced." Her justification, chillingly pragmatic, hit me. She wasn't denying the strangeness. She was actively, ruthlessly suppressing it, sacrificing individuals, Mateo, the teacher in the file, potentially me, for the perceived survival of the institution. As the horrifying realization sank in, the lights in her office flickered violently. The temperature plunged, and from the hallway outside her closed office door, clear as day, came the sound of rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, cap, complex, insistent. Rule 3. Thompson's face went chalk white, her eyes darting towards the door, raw terror momentarily eclipsing her anger. She knew. She absolutely knew. "Security," she barked into her desk intercom, her voice trembling slightly. "Escort Miss Bellwether off campus, immediately. She's experiencing acute distress." But before security could arrive, the tapping stopped, replaced by a faint sound from the direction of the library wing. A boy's voice, distorted, echoing as if from a great distance or from underground. Mateo's voice, calling my name. Thompson froze, listening. Then her expression hardened back into cold resolve. "This couldn't get out. Ignore that," she ordered, reaching for her phone, likely calling security directly now. "Just the building settling. No, I wouldn't let her bury this. I wouldn't let Mateo become another redacted file, another ghost haunting these halls." While Thompson was momentarily distracted by her phone, I lunged past her, wrenched open her office door, and ran back towards the library wing, towards Mateo's voice, towards the warped floor, ignoring Thompson's furious shouts behind me. The hunt was on, not just against the entity, but against the administrator determined to feed it through silence. Ignoring Thompson's enraged shouts echoing behind me, I sprinted towards the library wing, towards Mateo's disembodied voice. The humming from the warped floor intensified as I approached, a low, vibrating thrum that resonated in my bones. The air here was freezing cold, thick with the cloying smell I now recognized from Thompson's office restroom, all those weeks ago. Formaldehyde, mixed with decay. Mateo wasn't visible. His coals seemed to emanate directly from the distorted patch of linoleum Will had mopped so obsessively. The pattern swirled sluggishly, like oil on water, darker than the surrounding tiles. Mateo, can you hear me? Move away from the floor, I yelled, my voice cracking. His voice answered, closer now, but terrifyingly thin, stretched. Ms. Bellwether, I can't. It's pulling me. Looks like his words dissolved into a choked sob. Rule 2? Avoid that area. But Mateo was in it, or being drawn into it. I couldn't just leave him. Just as I braced myself to step onto the edge of the warp section, movement flickered at the periphery. Henderson. He appeared briefly at the far end of the corridor, met my eyes with a look of profound despair and resignation, then simply shook his head slowly and vanished back around the corner. He wouldn't help. He couldn't, or wouldn't risk Thompson's wrath. Mateo cried out again, a sound of pure terror this time. Screw the rules. Screw Henderson's cowardice. Screw Thompson's cover-up. I looked around wildly, spotting the bright red rectangle of a fire alarm pull station on the wall, just past the library doors. Without a second thought, I ran to it and yanked the lever down hard. Instantly, a piercing electronic alarm began shrieking through the hallways, strobing lights flashing overhead. A calculated risk. Thompson would hate the disruption, the official record it created, but it might break whatever concentration the entity, or Mateo, was under. It might buy precious seconds. The effect was immediate. The humming from the floor lessened slightly. Mateo gasped, as if suddenly able to breathe. It stopped pulling, he stammered. I saw him then, kneeling near the edge of the warped floor, looking dazed, one hand still outstretched towards the swirling pattern. Mateo, get back! Now! I screamed over the alarm. He scrambled backwards on hands and knees just as heavy footsteps pounded down the corridor. Thompson arrived, flanked by 2 campus security guards, her face a mask of cold fury, partially illuminated by the flashing emergency lights. Her eyes flickered from the shrieking alarm to the warped floor, to Mateo, then settled on me with glacial intensity. Silence that alarm, she ordered one guard, then pointed at me. Miss Bellwether, you are relieved of duty. Effective immediately. You are creating a hazardous situation and exhibiting extreme instability. Escort her off the premises. Now. She completely ignored Mateo, who was now huddled against the far wall, trembling. But Mateo. I protested as a guard took my arm firmly. Mr. Diaz appears to have had a panic attack, likely exacerbated by your unprofessional conduct, Thompson stated coldly, already moving towards Mateo, her expression shifting into one of feigned concern as she knelt beside him, effectively blocking my view. I will handle this. Remove her. I was marched out of the school, the fire alarm still blaring, Thompson's narrative already taking shape. I didn't see Henderson again. Passing the main office, I saw Thompson's secretary already shredding documents with quiet efficiency. The containment breach wasn't supernatural. It was me, and the system was moving swiftly to seal it. My termination from Black Mesa High was swift, brutal, and clinically bureaucratic. suspended pending investigation, then dismissed for gross negligence, endangerment of a student, and emotional instability. My attempts to contact the school board, the state education department, even local news outlets, hit impenetrable walls. Thompson's official report painted me as a stressed, potentially delusional teacher who had overreacted to minor building issues and student anxiety, fabricating wild stories. Henderson provided a carefully worded statement corroborating issues with my emotional regulation, effectively sealing my fate. Mateo, I learned through a brief official notification, had been transferred to another district for specialized support services shortly after the incident, vanished into the system. Erased, my teaching license was placed under review. My professional life was shattered. I left Arizona under a cloud, the desert silence replaced by the ringing tinnitus of failure and the chilling echo of Thompson's cold, controlled voice. Months crawled by. I found work in a different state, far from the desert, processing insurance claims in a gray cubicle farm. A soul-crushing anonymity that felt both like punishment and a strange kind of safety. I avoided schools, old buildings, the smell of disinfectant. I checked reflections obsessively, flinched at the sound of floor buffers, threw out any paper I couldn't immediately identify. The trauma was a constant, low hum beneath the surface of my days. One dreary Tuesday morning, scrolling through job listings during a coffee break, force of habit maybe, or a masochistic impulse, I saw it. An opening. English teacher, grade 9, Black Mesa High School, Arizona. Seeking dedicated educator for challenging but rewarding environment. Join our supportive, close-knit community. The boilerplate text felt like a physical blow. Curiosity, cold and morbid, compelled me to click the link for the school district's hiring portal. And there, featured prominently on the virtual interview platform description, was her face. Principal Thompson, smiling warmly, professionally, into the webcam. The interview slot was scheduled for later that afternoon. I couldn't resist. Using an anonymous browser, I clicked the link to observe the public session. The video feed flickered to life. Thompson sat in her office, the background artfully arranged to hide the overflowing files I remembered. Opposite her virtual image was a young woman, bright-eyed, eager, so much like I must have looked barely a year ago. And the student-teacher ratio allows for real connection, Thompson was saying smoothly, her voice radiating calm competence. Of course, like any school with aging infrastructure, we have our quirks, but our maintenance team is diligent, and our staff is incredibly supportive. We believe in transparency and addressing challenges head-on. The young applicant smiled brightly. That sounds wonderful. Some online forums mentioned high staff turnover in the past few years. Is there anything a new teacher should be particularly aware of? Thompson smile didn't flicker. Staffing in remote districts always has unique challenges, she replied easily. People move on for various reasons. What matters is following established procedures, focusing on student outcomes, and communicating any concerns through the proper channels. We find teachers who embrace our collaborative spirit and understand the importance of administrative protocols thrive here. She leaned forward slightly. It really just comes down to being a team player and trusting the process, miss. The applicant beamed. Harris. Emily Harris. My blood ran cold. Emily. The name echoed the lost girl from Widow's Leap. Coincidence? Or was the school the system? Already reaching out, finding its next potential casualty with chilling precision. Thompson continued. Oblivious, outlining curriculum standards and extracurriculars. But her eyes, even through the screen, held that same flat, obsidian quality I remembered. The eyes of someone guarding a terrible secret. Someone willing to maintain the silence, no matter the cost. The interview wound down with pleasantries, reassurances, promises of follow-up. As the feed cut out, leaving only feline gray of the web portal, I sat staring at the screen, the coffee cold in my hand. The system hadn't just reset. It was actively recruiting. The horror wasn't just the entity haunting the halls of Black Mesa High. It was the calm, smiling face on the screen. The embodiment of the bureaucratic machine that fed the darkness by simply looking the other way, signing the forms, and assuring the next victim that everything was perfectly normal. The lesson wasn't over. It was perpetually enrolling. They didn't fire me for breaking rules. They fired me for seeing what the rules were hiding. Black Mesa High didn't want me gone because I was unstable. They wanted me gone because I asked questions. Because I cared about a student they were willing to sacrifice for silence. They told me it was over, that I should forget. But when I saw the job listing again, when I saw her face smiling through another interview, I knew the school isn't haunted. It's a machine, and it's always hiring. If you've ever walked past a classroom window and felt something on the other side watching you, if your school ever had a hallway that never seemed to end, leave a comment, tell me, and hit like and subscribe. Because the bell doesn't dismiss you anymore. The school does. This was Night Creepypasta Rules.